Okay, good evening, Menifee. We are about to start our special meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:16. Madam Clerk, have you received any correspondence on tonight's agenda?
Yes, we have, and it's in your red folders.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We are now on agenda item 2, roll call. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Dynas.
Here.
Councilmember Temple.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carwin.
Here.
And Mayor Estrada.
Here. Thank you very much. We are now on agenda item 3, words of inspiration. I would like to call our commissioner, our Parks Commissioner, David Faust. Would you please have the honor of leading us today in the words of inspiration, sir?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, city staff, and fellow citizens. I also serve as a member of our Menifee Interfaith Council, and it's a pleasure to serve our community in that capacity as vice chair under the direction of Pastor Casey Crawford of Elevation Church. And he's a wonderful leader and example, and it's I'm grateful that we have a strong faith base here within our community of that represents people of all faiths. And I'm grateful for one thing in my life, especially, and that I have a lot of gratitude. And gratitude is a sign of maturity, and it's an indication of sincere humility. I think it's a hallmark of civility, and most of all, I think it's a divine principle. We all serve in some capacity in our various roles in life, and sometimes we do great things, and sometimes we do small things. And I think it's those small things that really matter the most. And even as imperfect as we are as individuals, I strongly believe that our imperfect service becomes perfect through the influence of our faith. I'd like to lead us with a short prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity to meet together as a city council in this wonderful community of Menifee. We ask thy blessings upon this new council, that they may lead and guide and direct us through thy inspiration, that the focus of all that they do as a council will be to the benefit of our community, so that Menifee will continue to be a shining example in this region. And these things we pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Faust. We appreciate your words of inspiration. We are now on agenda item 4, Pledge of Allegiance. We have Teddy Groves in the audience, longtime Sun City resident and strong contributor to our community. Would you please lead us in the pledge, sir? Thank you, Mr. Groves. We are now on agenda item 5, agenda approval or modifications. Madam Clerk, are there any modifications to tonight's agenda?
There are not.
Okay. Can I ask for all in favor to approve the agenda? Aye. Aye. Hearing none opposed, the agenda is approved. We will now move on to agenda item 6, public comment on non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on non-agenda items?
We do have one speaker.
Okay, can you please call the names?
Brian Hawley.
Okay, Mr. Hawley, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Sorry, 1 second. I do need to read a disclaimer on this portion of the agenda. Please excuse me while I read that. This is a time for members of the public to address the council about items which are not listed on the agenda. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the council's ability to respond to comments on non-agendized matters at this time. Such comments are made. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes on any single item. And Mr. Hawley, we usually have the 3 minutes displayed up on this corner of the screen. Thank you very much for letting me read that. You may
That-
proceed.
I ask at this time that the city council and the mayor waive that disclaimer because I have diabetes, I need to go get something to eat, and I would like to talk about Quail Valley and replacement of your position.
Well, thank you, Mr. Holly. Your comments are very much appreciated, and your presence is appreciated here. But because of the Ralph M. Brown Act, we cannot waive that.
Is he asking to be able to talk on an agenda item out of order? I don't think he was asking to waive the 3 minutes.
He wants to talk about something on the agenda, and this is for non-agendized items. Okay. Would anybody else like to speak on non-agendized items? Okay. Hearing none, we are now on to agenda item 7, council member updates and comments. This is the time for the city council to provide any updates or comments on meetings and events they have attended. I will go ahead and start over to my right. Council member Temple, lead us off.
I am attending right now.
All right, off to a fresh start. Excellent. I will now move on to Councilmember Dynas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On December the 10th, I attended the Finance Committee meeting where we reviewed a development agreement with Pulte Homes for Cinnamon Ridge development, and it'll be coming to the full council here in the near future. Then on the 11th, I attended the RTA Administration and Operations Committee meeting, and then enjoyed on December the 12th the Employee Luncheon and Awards. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dynas. Mayor Pro Tem Carwin.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see. I attended the 1-year anniversary celebration for our Chick-fil-A across the street, wonderful community where you can see it right out the doorway. I think all of us were there at the Christmas tree lighting and holiday bazaar. That was a wonderful event, always great every year. I attended our planning commission meeting to honor the outgoing chair, Jeff Ledoux, who was my appointee to the planning commission, and I just want to thank him for his service to the planning commission and to this city and for serving as chair for 2 years. And I'll just say as an update that the only item that was on the agenda was approval to an application to expand the View Church, and that was passed unanimously by the Planning Commission. I'm glad to see that. It's going to be a nice addition. I attended the city employee holiday luncheon where we got to name our employees of the quarter and of the year. That's always great to help celebrate our staff for doing their very, very hard work and making our job so much easier. Busy day on Saturday. I went to the K. Senacero Center for breakfast with Santa. Got to hang out there with the kids. And then in the afternoon, I was back there for the Mighty Me holiday party, which was great. Shining Star Dancers, if you were at the Christmas tree lighting, you saw them perform there, and I got to see them up close. It was great. And then this very morning, I was at the Chamber of Commerce Wake Up Menifee event at the Lady R Bistro, and the Chamber of Commerce honored outgoing Councilwoman Lisa Sobek and outgoing Mayor Zimmerman for their service. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a few updates. I went to the Quail Valley Community Meeting on the 10th, and the residents there expressed a desire to keep an eye on our now vacated fire department. We just had that ribbon cutting for the new fire department, and the residents there wanted just, as their representative, they wanted us to make sure the building doesn't go forgotten and that we keep investing infrastructure in Quail Valley. They were open to ideas such as a community center or a police substation were some ideas thrown, but I know we're in the initial phases of that and their early discussions, but just providing staff an update on that. Also, another update out of Quail Valley, the HOA approved the transfer of land from the Canyon Heights HOA, approved the transfer of land of their park to the city, and I understand our city staff is working with the HOA there in Canyon Heights, and this could be a great opportunity to provide Quail Valley with its very first park. Quail Valley residents generally go to Spirit Park and Audie Murphy or Cabian Park, which is run by the county, but working in partnership with Mariana Mitchell and my attendance, the HOA was able to pass a vote to transfer their HOA park to the city. and I look forward to potentially bringing Quail Valley its very first park. So that's exciting for that community. Those are all the updates I have. And that will be it for council member updates and comments. Now we will move over to agenda item 8, approval of the minutes. There are 2 sets of minutes for the council's approval. Does the council have any modifications? Nope. Hearing none. Okay, can I ask the city council for all in favor of approving the December 4th, 2024 special and regular meeting minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next, we are moving on to agenda item 9, consent calendar. We are now on the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are to be approved in one motion unless a council member requests a separate action on a specific item on the consent calendar. If an item is removed from the consent calendar, it will be discussed individually and acted upon separately. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on consent calendar items?
Yes, I have one speaker for item 9.6.
Okay. Item 9.6. Okay.
Can I have Vincent Castorena up to the podium?
Okay. Mr. Castaneda, welcome.
First time in a council meeting after 35 years in Sun City, Menifee area. Bear with me. We're changing the street name of our street that had been a resident for over 30 years. I know the reason. It has some derogatories in the street name, but the recommendation was Olympic Valley Drive, and I believe the city recommended Sun Valley Drive, and that was my understanding. My question is, can we just go with the city's recommendation of Sun Valley Drive versus Olympic Valley Drive? That was part of the question I had. Well, that's all of my question, actually.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Castaneda. That may be an item that the council wishes to pull and discuss further, and I ask that you patiently hold on and wait for that moment.
Okay, another question. How long is this process going to take from street name? It doesn't matter, either the Olympic or Sun Valley, getting rid of, I mean, is any?
Mr. City Attorney, may I direct this to you?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Mayor. First, unfortunately, the public comment section isn't the time for Q&A on this agenda item. So one of 2 things is going to happen. One will be the agenda item will get pulled by a member of the city council, and then there'll be a discussion, and I'm sure in the discussion of that, they'll talk about the process and all of the steps in the process. If that doesn't happen, if the item stays on the consent agenda, the community development director is sitting right behind you and has the chronology for the implementation of the name change.
Perfect, thank you.
No other speakers on consent calendar.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any items the council wishes to pull for further discussion?
9.5, please, Mayor.
9.5. Thank you. Anything else?
Move to approve the balance?
I would like to pull 9.6 and address this for the resident. So we have pulled 9.5 and 9.6. And we have a motion to approve the balance. Can I get a second, please? Second. We have a second. Excellent. And Madam Clerk, my vote hasn't popped up on my screen. Would you like a verbal from me?
Yes, please.
Okay, I motion to approve the balance. Okay, that passes 4-0. Thank you. All right, so now that we pulled agenda items 9.5 and 9.6, we will move on to that. All right, 9.5. Let's start with Councilmember Dynas' request. Councilmember Dynas, did you have questions or would you like a presentation from staff?
I have questions.
Okay.
I don't think the fire chief's here, but his stand-in, our assistant city manager, will do fine. A question on the auto aid. I don't think we ever, there's no definition, so I'm curious, what does auto aid mean?
We can have Chief Scoville write up a response for you about auto aid, closest engine, and mutual aid. They're three different things, but we'll provide that definition to you on how they use that.
Great, and I guess we were at it, the difference between auto aid, mutual aid, and then the jurisdiction report. It seems like we're operating tracking three different types of activities there. They seem to be three different ones. I know there's been some misconception that the jurisdiction report, a lot of misconception that's mutual aid between our surrounding cities, but in fact that's not the case. It's just that's Menifee Fire Department going into other cities to provide services. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I guess my concern is that as we see the numbers here, they haven't improved at all from our going to other cities, particularly with Paris once again. You know, and I just, on the back of the envelope type of calculation here, a portion of our fire expenses go to those calls. I mean, what is our fire department budget for the year, if you could remind me?
It's approximately $20 million.
20 million. So, I think conservatively, we spend $2 to $3 million a year addressing, going and responding to Paris incidents there. And sadly, that they go there they have that shopping center. They have a lot of, they have plenty of sales tax revenue, but I'm concerned that, one, that we're degrading our response time in the city every time we go to Paris. And second, I know they are getting ready to Paris is entertaining a truck stop right there by the freeway, which will be highly flammable stuff and things like that. So my concern is that once that's built, or if it is built, then I'm afraid those numbers will increase more given the type of business that is. So I know you've written a letter to the county and the CAL FIRE, so I look forward to their response. But and then if that report coming back and differentiate what all those are would be greatly appreciated then.
We have a meeting scheduled with Chief Weiser from Riverside County Fire in early January, I think the second week in January.
Great, and I do hope you convey the council's concern that $2 to $3 million of our residents' taxes are going to serve other cities and not our own is a little worrisome. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Dynas. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on 9.5?
No requests.
Request. Okay, Councilmember Dynas, I'm glad you brought that up. This is the second or third time we as a council have addressed this, and it is a priority for us. And I thank you for your aggressiveness and bringing this to light for our residents and making it a point that our public safety funds should stay in Menifee. That was a good pull. Thank you, sir.
With that, I'll move approval of the item.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, that passes 4-0. We will move on to 9.6. I pulled this item to address Mr. Castañeda's concern. This was the discussion. This is on Olympic Drive, and I wanted to follow up. Thank you for being up there, Director Kitsaro. Can you please, you don't have to go through a full presentation, but if you can provide clarification and remind the public how the council moved this item in the past?
Sure, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is a street name change from Squaw Valley to, as proposed currently, Olympic Valley Drive. This is in response to state legislation requiring the removal of the Squaw Valley reference in all geographic locations. Staff did present this item as a public hearing to the council in early August with a recommendation to change the name to Sun Valley Drive. At that public hearing, there were public speakers, residents, and property owners on that street. A resident had requested that the council consider, instead of Sun Valley Drive, Olympic Valley Drive, consistent with the changes that occurred up in Northern California to the ski resort to pay homage to the Olympics. And the council did make a motion and recommendation to go with that Olympic Valley Drive. So both Sun Valley, Olympic Valley, and then an additional name that was submitted by the Morongo Band of Indians were submitted to the state for consideration, because ultimately the state is the one managing the overall changes statewide. The state did give the city council the authorization to use any three of those options, but staff is back here tonight as a formality to implement the recommendation that was made by the council at the public hearing in August for Olympic Valley Drive. In terms of timing, we would need to have the street name sign changed and make formal notifications to the 911 system, the county assessor's office. There is a list of local government and agencies that the city will make notification to, in addition to the property owners and residents on that street. We will not implement the change until after the holidays and do provide additional information and notice to the residents and owners when that change is formally made with the changes in the signs and notifications.
Okay, thank you, Director Kitsuro. Does the council have any other questions for staff on this? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, any requests to speak on this again?
No other requests.
No other request? Mr. Furman, yes, please make sure you go to the back desk, please, and fill out a speaker card. You can do that after you speak, but just make sure you do that by the end of the night. That way we have you on public record, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
What I think is there's a lot of people in the city that don't realize that we have quite an Indian heritage in this valley. The Luisenjo Indians, a division of the Pachanga tribe, settled this valley in 18 and 1700s, and they lived in the valley. The city has dedicated 105 acres to the Indian heritage, and I hate seeing any Indian name that was picked for a location changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Furman. Would anybody else like to speak on this item? Okay. Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Thank you for the reminder, Director Kitsuro. I remember back at that city council meeting, if my recollection serves me correctly, there were 2 residents who were at the public listening event, and out of that, they were in agreement that Olympic would be a suitable name. Council members, is that what you recall as well?
Yeah, I remember they were talking about that Squaw Valley was a resort that had hosted the Olympics in 1960, so that's where that connection was. Instead of changing it to a different resort name entirely, we keep it in line with the resort that the street was named after, and that was a request that was made from a resident who lived on the street, and I think it's a fine name, and I'd be fine to honor that. Okay.
Well, thank you, Director Kitsuro. Mr. Castaneda, I hope that clarifies your question here at this meeting. If you have any further questions, you have Director Kitsuro, who you can direct that to. I will make a motion to approve 9.6. Can I get a second, please? Okay, and that passes 4-0. We will now move on to agenda item 10, public hearing items. 10.1 is the discussion of the public nuisance declaration of the retail pads at the Krikorian Entertainment Complex property. Can Community Development Director Cheryl Kitzer, you are fast. Look at you. Thank you, Director. Go ahead and introduce the item for us, please.
At your service, Mayor and City Council members. Cheryl Kitzer, Community Development Director. The item before you is a public hearing on the public nuisance abatement for the retail pads over at the Krikorian Entertainment Complex. Before I jump into the presentation, I did want to acknowledge that this is a joint effort between community development with the planning and building divisions, code enforcement, and the city attorney's office. I'm joined here this evening by Noam Duzman, attorney with our law firm Rattan & Tucker, and Craig Carlson, our building official. So by way of location, I'm pretty sure everyone is aware of the location of the complex at Newport Road and Town Center Drive. Back in June, the council took action, similar action, to declare a public nuisance and demand the abatement of the theater complex. The retail pads is what is the focus of tonight's public hearing. The two buildings or foundations and partial structures highlighted there in orange. So just a little background for the council and the public. The project has been an ongoing construction site since before 2020. The construction halted in April of 2020. A notice of violation by our code enforcement was issued in September of 2021. In October of 2023, a notice for abatement of the public nuisance was sent to the property owner. In November of 2023, the same notice was issued for the retail pads. In April of 2024, a third party performed an inspection of the site conditions. That report is included in your packet. There was an administrative hearing regarding the abatement because the property owner appealed it. That hearing officer in November did determine that the site is a public nuisance and order the abatement. According to the city's municipal code, it does require that the council now take that final action. So here are some photos that were included in the inspection report identifying the issues with the structures on site. And I want to give you a summary of those. So the unfinished building systems have fallen out of normal construction. It's been over 4 years since there's been any construction activity on the site. The structural observation, verification, and manufacturer recertification of building components and products, as well as repair and replacement of numerous systems, would be required before anything can move forward. And then additional testing would be required to those buildings that are already in disrepair. So here is the sections of our municipal code on public nuisances that this project site is subject to. And if you will allow me to, I would like to read this formally into the record, each of these sections, as we did when we had this similar hearing on the theater site. So I apologize, it's a little lengthy. I'll try and get through it as quickly as I can. So any premises, buildings, or other structures or portions thereof that is partially constructed or destroyed or allowed to remain in a state of partial construction or deconstruction for an unreasonable period of time. This is a public nuisance. As used in this section, the term unreasonable period means any portion of time exceeding the period given to a responsible person by the city for the complete abatement of this nuisance condition with all required city approvals, permits, and inspections. One or more of the following factors may be used by the city to establish a reasonable period for the complete abatement of this nuisance. And then I will go through section 11.20020 to A through J. So A, the degree of partial construction or deconstruction and the cause thereof. Per a building official, the site is only 5% complete with its construction, and no substantial construction activity has occurred since April of 2020. B, whether or not this condition constitutes an attractive nuisance or if it otherwise poses or promotes a hazard to the health, safety, or welfare of the occupants or the general public. The fencing that secures the site has not been properly secured over the last 4 years. There have been complaints of graffiti, and as you are aware, earlier this year, these particular structures, there was a fire, so folks are getting on this site. C, the degree of visibility, if any, of this condition from public or adjoining private real property. The site is located on Newport Road, our primary commercial corridor. It is visible above the construction fencing that does surround the site to the public and adjacent property owners. D, the scope and type of work that is needed to abate this nuisance. The structures have been exposed to the elements, have been damaged by fire, and staff recommends that demolition is the best next step. E, the existence of any current and valid approvals, permits, or other entitlements for the partially constructed or destroyed building or structure. The building permits for the project expired in 2023, and further, the entitlement approvals from a zoning perspective expired in June of 2024. F, the promptness with which a responsible person has applied for and obtained all required city approvals and permits in order to lawfully comply with the nuisance abatement actions. No activity for permits or abatement have occurred on the site to date. G, whether or not a responsible person has complied with other required technical code requirements, including requesting and passing required inspections in a timely manner while completing nuisance abatement action. Little to no abatement action has occurred on the site for the last 4 years. Almost done. H, whether or not a responsible person has applied for extensions to any required permit or renewed an expired permit, as well as the number of extensions and renewals that a responsible person has previously sought or obtained from the city. There are no new applications submitted on the site formally, or any formal requests for extensions have not been received. I, whether or not a responsible person has made substantial progress as determined by the city in performing nuisance abatement actions under any required permit that has expired or is about to expire. Again, no substantial progress to abate the nuisance has occurred in the last 4 years. And J, whether delays in completing the nuisance abatement actions under any required permit have occurred and the reasons for such delays. There have been significant delays in abating this nuisance. So with that, staff is here to recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution declaring the retail pads at the Krikorian Entertainment Complex as public nuisances and to order the owner to timely abate said conditions. I do want to add and remind the council that earlier this year in November, the council did award a bid for the demolition of the theater project, the theater building itself, and as part of that contract, there was an option additional add-on for these retail buildings should that be the path we go down. And with that, I'm available for any questions. There is a letter in your red folder as well on this item.
Thank you, Director Kitsero. Great job on that presentation. We appreciate it. Does the City Council have any questions for staff at this time? Councilmember Carr, when you're in the queue, go ahead.
Thank you. So what happens if we were to approve this item? What happens next? Does it go, do we have to file a petition with the court like we did with the theater building? Or has that already been taken care of? What's the next step after this?
I'll go ahead and ask Noam to respond to that process question.
As part of the resolution that is before you for consideration, the property owner would be provided an additional 30 days to abate these nuisance conditions. If they fail to do so, the city would then acquire jurisdiction to go ahead and move forward. In order to move forward, we would apply to the court for a warrant to enter the property because it is private property, and furthermore to abate the nuisance by demolition. As far as the lawsuit that you were referring to, that was actually initiated by the property owner, and it was with respect to the theater because we've taken action on the theater, and we would not be surprised if they amend that action to add now retail pads 3 and 4. The court initially stayed the city's ability to demolish the theater based on a representation by the owner that they had a potential buyer and that they were entering an escrow. That escrow fell through, and there does not appear to be any interested buyer, a serious buyer at this point. So by default, there will not be a stay. But through the filing of the writ, there will not be a stay of this action to demolish. So most likely, if 30 days comes from now and it have not been abated, the city will be then authorized to move forward with its contract and demolish these structures.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. The first time we went through this with the theater building, we had to get a warrant and go in to do the inspection. But the court ordered the abatement. So we don't have to go get a warrant to enter the property to inspect. That's already been done pursuant to this report. So if they don't tear it down in 30 days, we've already bid the contract and we could just move forward in 30 days.
Yeah, we do have to go get a warrant again to enter the property in order to conduct the demolition because it's a private property. The first time we got the warrant was in order to go onto the property and do a full inspection to determine and assess the structural integrity and so forth of these structures.
So is that an ex parte process or does that require a hearing?
It is well, that's a really good question. Different courts handle that differently. It is a submittal. Most courts do hold a hearing similar to an ex parte. Some judges do it in chambers. That means without a hearing.
So how long did it take us to get the first one?
I don't
absent the stay that they put in there.
Yeah, I don't recall exactly. Different courts, again, it depends on their calendar. Actually preparing on our end, preparing the paperwork takes a couple, 2-3 days. Depending on the court's calendar, it could take anywhere from a day to a week to issue the warrant.
So what we're looking at is that there's no action by the owners, show prop. We're looking at 30 days from today plus call it 2 weeks for the administrative approval of the warrant?
That's correct. They could obviously object to that and oppose it, and that would be heard in front of the court.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Carwin. Are there any other questions from City Council at this time? Okay, hearing none. We'll then move over to opening the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at 6:53. Madam Clerk, can you confirm that the item has been legally noticed and if any correspondence has been received?
This item was legally noticed. No other correspondence other than what Ms. Kitsaro has already noted in your red folders.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a representative on behalf of Krikorian present to speak tonight? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak from the public?
No requests.
No requests. Okay. Since the property owner, Krikorian, isn't here, council can't ask the property owner any questions, so I'm going to move past that part of the agenda. If there are no public speakers, I will close the public hearing at 6:54. Now we'll move next to council member comments and discussion. Would anybody like to start us off? Do we have any discussion on this item?
Move to approve the resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I want to clarify that this is a motion and a second to adopt a resolution declaring conditions of the retail pads present at Krikorian Entertainment Complex property to be a public nuisance and ordering the abatement. We have a motion from Carwin and a second from Dynas. Thank you. And that passes 4-0. All right. We will now move on to agenda item 11, discussion items. This is 11.1, 2025 appointments to council subcommittees and regional boards and commissions. Madam Clerk, can you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Real briefly, so each year, the council goes through our regional boards, subcommittees, and ad hoc committee list to look at appointment or reappointment to serve on those bodies. Before you is a list of those. The vacant seats are from outgoing council members and Mayor Zimmerman and Sobek. And then the current appointees from the 2024 are the ones still listed. So now it's for council's consideration and discussion to appoint new members. And if you have any questions, staff is available.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council colleagues, do we have any questions for staff? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak, or has any correspondence been received on this item?
None to either.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, City Council, this is our opportunity now to discuss and make recommendations. Okay, Councilman Carwin. Mayor Pro Tem Carwin. Yeah, let me clarify that.
Say it loud.
Mayor Pro Tem Carwin. There you go. All right, go ahead, sir.
Good thing I kept my name badge from 3 years ago. You know, I'm on a bunch of appointments currently. I would like to keep the ones that I have, but I know that RCTC was vacated by the mayor. It's a big commission, and we're normally best represented by the mayor, so I would defer to you. If you wanted to do that, I would nominate you for that commission. If you were unable to do it for whatever reason, I would like to nominate myself.
Councilmember Carwin, I think you would be a great fit for that position. You would have my support and recommendation on that.
Question?
Sure, Councilman Davis.
Right now, you're on WRCOG. Would you intend to stay there on WRCOG?
I would like to stay on WRCOG. I've made a lot of good connections there.
Yes,
We've got good
yes.
momentum, so I would handle both WRCOG and RCTC, and then I think I'm the alternate for a couple of things, and I don't mind staying in those alternate positions.
Okay, council members, we're going to go one by one on each item to stay organized with it. So we're at RCTC, Carwin as our representative and Councilmember Dynas as our alternate. Are we okay with moving on to the next item? Okay. All right, Councilmember Carwin, you also inherit by definition because the Western Riverside County Programs and Projects Committee is attached to the RCTC, so it would make sense to keep you on that, and they complement each other. Okay. All right, excellent. Now we're going to move on to...
We need an alternate for that, though.
Oh, it looks like Dynas is the alternate.
RCTC, oh, I thought you were saying, I thought we'd moved on to WRCOG.
Well, we're moving there next.
Okay.
Yes, we're moving on to WRCOG right now. So Councilmember Carwin is our representative. Would we have anybody like to volunteer for the vacancy? Okay. We can hold off on that for now. And council, we do have one empty seat on our council, and we can always revisit this discussion when we make a decision on that. But just for flow right now, we have a representative at least that will go represent us. Thank you, Councilmember Carwin, with your work on WRCOG. Next, we'll move over to Western Riverside Regional Conservation Authority. That meets on Mondays. Do we have any recommendations on this from council members? I'll throw one out. Councilmember Temple, I think this would be a great opportunity for you to be involved. How would you feel about that appointment?
I was attempting to find my on button to volunteer for it, so happy to do that.
All right.
I would second that.
All right. Sounds like we have consensus. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Temple. Next, we'll move over to RCHCA, the Riverside County Habitat Conservation Agency. We also have a vacancy in that. Would anybody like to volunteer for that?
Usually that goes hand in hand with the Western Riverside Regional one, so it makes sense if Dan would be amenable to it to serve on that as well. There's some continuity when you do that.
There's a lot of overlap in those two as well.
Okay, happy to do that.
Okay, excellent. We'll add Councilmember Temple there. Our RTA is taken care of. The SCAG is taken care of. I'm the representative there with Dynas as the alternate. Next, we have our Menifee Chamber of Commerce. We have a vacancy. Would anybody like to volunteer for that?
That's always been the mayor. I think it's important for the mayor to be the representative on the Chamber of Commerce.
I would love to contribute to that, but my restrictions in education might hinder that. So I would like to defer to the three of you, or we can wait until we address our next council seat.
When we get, however we determine a new council member, is this going to be reorganized at that point, or?
We can reorganize multiple seats.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Madam
It
Clerk.
is staff's intent that when we do have a full 5-member council again, that we can bring this back for the council's consideration and reorganization.
Okay. Councilmember Carwin, are you interested in the chamber? You are a member?
You're asking me to do a huge load. I mean, the reason the mayor is there because it ties directly into policy. It's unfortunate. I recall that when we were setting these, when you first came on board, you were disappointed that you weren't part of a lot of these things. And one of the reasons you said you wanted to run for mayor was so that you could participate in a lot more of these things. I'm already the alternate. I'm on the other two big committees, and I have a day job also. I'm not retired, and I'm not the mayor. So I'll stay as alternate, and I go to the the Chamber of Commerce meetings, but I don't have the time to do all of everything.
Okay, that's no problem. We can address this at a future date. That's no problem. We'll find a way to be a team and spread out responsibilities. It's going to be a team effort. I look forward to contributing more to the local ad hocs and the meetings that our local staff can control. These regional meetings are within county control. So I look to take up my share and contribute to Menifee-controlled ad hoc committees. So hearing none on Menifee Chamber of Commerce, we're going to move on to, Councilmember Temple.
That was old.
That was it? All right. All
New,
right.
new guy jitters.
All right, no problem. We'll go ahead and move on to Southwest Communities Financing Authority. Councilmember Dynas, are you okay with staying there? Okay. Next, we have Southwest Elected Collaborative Group. Okay. Hearing none, we can address that at a future date. Madam Clerk,
Is that one Zoom or is that one in person? That one's in person? Because that's the same time as Rotary Club meetings, but the mayor was always at Rotary Club. Wasn't he the representative on that? It was Sobek?
Councilwoman Sobek.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you please scroll down? Okay, we have the Finance Committee. This is, Madam Clerk, can you scroll down a little so I can see a little bit more? Or up, there you go. Yeah, this is the Council Standing Committee, Finance Committee. Councilmember Dynas is on this committee. I would like to volunteer for this if I have the support of a colleague. Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Next, we have the City and School Districts Committee. We just had this meeting a month or so ago. There is no, and they meet once a year. There is no immediate urgency for this. This usually happens. It happened a couple months ago, so there's nothing that we have to worry about in the immediate future. If anyone would like to volunteer, we're open to that, or we can stand by for that.
I like that one. I can serve on that. I've done it before, and I've got a good relationship with the superintendents of schools, so I'm happy to do that one.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Carwin. Next, we have the Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee. I would like to join this one if I have the support of a colleague.
I support that.
Thank you, Councilmember Temple. I will join on that. Next, we have the Parks Ad Hoc Committee. I would more than happy to join on that.
I wouldn't mind volunteering for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councilman Carwin. Looks like we have a second on me and Councilmember Temple. Next, we have the Sphere of Influence Ad Hoc Committee. I would like to be a part of this if I can get the support of another colleague. All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Next, we have the Southern Gateway Plan Ad Hoc Committee. I served on this with Mayor Zimmerman. Would there be any volunteers for this?
I can do that.
Okay, great, Councilmember Temple. Next, we have the Central Park Amphitheater Ad Hoc Committee with Councilmember Carwin. I don't mind stepping into this unless there are other suggestions.
I wouldn't mind, be happy to do that. I mean, at least until we get another council member here, then redo that.
Second, before he changes his mind.
All right, we have.
I haven't finished my speech.
Councilmember Danis there. All right. Excellent.
The Army told me not to volunteer. I learned that.
All right, excellent. Next, that concludes discussion item 11.1. Next, we will move on to.
Mayor?
I'm sorry. I need to make we need to get a second and a motion and a second. Turn. Excellent, excellent. Okay, can I get a motion and a second to ratify?
Can I make the motion, but with the understanding that we'll revisit this once the new council member is seated?
Excellent, and I would support that.
I'll second.
Thank you. That passes 4-0. Next, we're going to move on to agenda item 11.2, filling the District 2 City Council seat vacancy. Madam Clerk, can you please introduce this item?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Stephanie Rosane, City Clerk. Happy to provide this overview. So for a little bit of background, with the council certifying election at our last special meeting at 4 o'clock, our District 2 representative, Ricky Estrada, has moved over to the mayor seat, which creates a vacancy on our District 2 City Council seat. Councilmember Estrada's District 2 term began on December 15th, 2022, and was set to end with the certification of the 2026 election. District 2 seat becomes available or vacant as of tonight, and with in Government Code 36512, kind of dictates the way that we need to address the vacancy. That government code states that the City Council must appoint a replacement or call a special election. That action must be taken within 60 days of the vacancy, and that 60-day deadline is going to fall on a Saturday, February 15th, 2025. I'll go over the three options that the City Council has. For the first, we do have a special election. It must be held on the next established election dates, which is outlined in Elections Code 1000, and it must occur at least 114 days after being called. With that said, our next available election date will be November 4th, 2025. March would have been available, but we can't because of the 114-day deadline. And then April and June election dates can only happen in even-numbered years. As a fiscal impact for the city, the estimated cost provided by the registrar of voters is about $68,000. And I just want to note that the registrar has noted that they are undergoing a user fee study, and that cost could go up by November of next year. Option 2 would be an appointment for essentially 2 years. They would serve until December of 2026. Council has the authority to establish any appointment process they like, one of which could be a direct appointment by a majority vote. It could include an application and interview process, asking for a qualified interest list to be notified or noticed, or any other method determined by the City Council. Again, that deadline to appoint is February 15th of 2025. If the council did decide to go by an appointment process and could not get a majority vote by that deadline, the council must call the special election. The third is an appointment and special election combination. The council would appoint a member of District 2 to temporarily fill the vacancy until the November 2025 election. And then that, then at that special election, the new council member would be seated, estimated in December of 2025, and served for the remainder of the 2026 year. The council would need to adopt an ordinance in order to do that, and then that would apply for all future vacancies until the ordinance was repealed. So staff recommendation is to discuss and provide feedback on how to fill the District 2 vacancy with one of the three options. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does the council have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Carwin.
Regarding option number 2, would we have time to have more than one meeting on that? So if we were to call a meeting, would this have to be done by special meetings, or could it be done within the context of our regular meetings?
So the council will have 2 regular meetings prior to that February 15th date. We have one scheduled for January 15th and then one for February 5th. So at January 15th, we could bring a staff report back with whatever option the council has decided tonight. And then February 5th, do an appointment process if that were what you were choosing.
So if we were to select that, option number 2, the February 5th meeting would be the time we'd have to select somebody for an appointment.
You could do it sooner at the January 15th meeting. It's up to the council as far as the appointment process is concerned. So if at tonight we get direction that you want to call and ask for a qualified list of applicants, we can put that notice out as soon as we're able to, and ask for dates and names and bring those back to you for January 15th.
Okay, so there is sufficient time for that, for notice.
It would be expedited, but yes, absolutely.
Got it. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other questions from council colleagues? Okay. Hearing none. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak, or has any correspondence been received on this item?
No correspondence has been received. We do have a public speaker, Christine Garrett.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Garrett.
Yes, I'd like to ask for a special election, call for a special election. And then that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Garrett.
Thank you.
We appreciate your input. Are there any other public speakers on this item?
No other speakers.
Okay. Now we'll move on, bring it back here. Council members, this is the time for us to discuss. Okay, Councilmember Dynas, go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, given the circumstances, the fact that a special election would first cost $68,000, that's a good portion of a police officer, park maintenance, road repair, that type of thing, and the fact that the seat would sit vacant for almost a year gives me concern, and that serves no one any purpose at all. I think that does a disservice. So I would think that the appointment would be most appropriate, so that District 2 will have representation sooner than a year from now.
Thank you, Councilmember Dynas. Next, Mayor Pro Tem Carwin.
Thank you. Yeah, I think number one would definitely leave District 2 at a major disadvantage because there would be no representative there. So the hybrid there would be number 3. But I do know from speaking to Councilmember Sobek that she had to do a special election and then a regular election 2 consecutive years in a row. We'd add the $68,000 for the special election, sure, but anybody who's running in the special election would also have to raise funds and do that. And the amount of money that's going to be circulated there is ripe for somebody trying to mess with the process. I think because of 2 elections that quickly, trying to raise that kind of money takes people who are going to be at a financial disadvantage kind of out of the running. I like the idea of an appointment with the application process, so anybody who is interested in the position would come and speak to the podium. We could ask questions. The public would get to meet them and see them and hear them, and the process would be kind of out in the open as opposed to us today just picking a name out of a hat. So I'm kind of leaning towards appointment, which would be through the end of the term, and then at the next general election in 26, have an open election for the seat, which would be another 4-year term.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Temple?
Yeah, I agree with an appointment as well. I think the best thing that it does is it does serve District 2. It allows them representation on all the committees and commissions. Plus, it allows the city to have that continuity of work with appointments to some of these commissions and committees that we've looked at. So I think that's the best option, is to have people come in, review, and make an appointment through the election cycle.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Temple. I think there is a need to have a full team of 5. We do need to have District 2 represented adequately. City Council is a large responsibility, and a team of 5 would be very beneficial for the residents. I think there's also something to say about a special election. It gives the residents an opportunity to choose their representative instead of leaving it up to a body of 4. I'm interested to see going forward at our future city council meetings how the public feels about this. But at this time, it sounds like we have a majority, 3 for the appointment. I heard Councilmember Carwin in favor of that, and Councilmember Temple. Councilmember Dinas, can you remind me which option? Okay, so you were in favor of the appointment. Okay, it sounds like we have a majority on that. I also think there is something to say about putting someone in District 2 who would also reflect the values that I originally ran for in 2022. I think residents resonated with some of those policies. So I would ask the colleagues to consider those policies that won by almost 20% in that election. I understand my colleagues have their views, and I respect my colleagues' views, but I would just like to make a special note of the election I won in 2022 and the policies I ran on in 2022. Okay, that is all I have to say on agenda item 11.12. Sounds like we have direction, though. Can we add clarification? City Attorney, do you need more clarification on can you also help provide the public clarification on how this process could go?
So, with your indulgence, Mayor, first, it would be helpful if we had a motion from the council that would direct the city clerk to send out a notice, an appropriate notice, so that candidates could come to the first city council meeting in January, the only city council meeting in January, for an opportunity to discuss this in a public forum, if that's the council's will. I think that's how Councilmember Carwin suggested it would go, and if the council is in agreement with that, then we would have the opportunity to have that discussion in January. You would have the ability that night, if it was your pleasure, to make an appointment. And if you weren't ready to make an appointment that night, you would have the ability on February 5th, which is the last regular meeting before the expiration of the 60-day deadline, to revisit that issue. And I don't want to overcomplicate this, but If those opportunities to talk about it aren't sufficient, yes, you could have special meetings to fill in gaps as the need arises. But for the immediate next step, it would help us to have council direction, to direct the clerk, to send out notices, to get a list of people that want to volunteer for the position. One last thing to say, that's not an exclusive list. It may be that council members, for one reason or another, or members of the community, they don't put their name on an interest list, but somebody asks them. That can happen. I don't want to leave the impression that this is the only way that an appointment could occur.
Okay, thank you, City Attorney Melching. Next, when this happens at the next City Council meeting in January, can we have staff help facilitate maybe a questionnaire back and forth between any applicant and the council? That way our public can have an opportunity to see the point of views, be able to reflect on the answers they heard and make public comments on the interviews back and forth in front of the public?
We absolutely can do that. In terms of the content of the questionnaire, I'll leave it to the city manager to fill in the gaps here. I can think of two ways to do this. One is to have staff effectively survey circumstances where this has happened in prior cities and find questionnaires for use for that purpose. The other is to effectively ask open-ended questions about why do you think you are the most appropriate candidate to fill the seat. I say all of this because if you're asking us to bring back questionnaires, we want to make sure we've asked the right questions prior to the next regular city council meeting.
You know, I'm okay with having that as a standard template, but I also want us to think outside of the box and be able to ask our own individual questions that maybe staff wasn't able to come up with.
So two suggestions for that. One would be that you could simply have the council members ask the questions during the public meeting in January. The second is you could have the council members individually submit their top 2 or 3 questions to the city manager, and those would then get integrated into whatever gets sent out to the candidates.
Council colleagues, how do you feel?
Well, I like the idea of having, and just so I can be clear, when you said questionnaire, did you mean question and answer, or were you actually talking about a written questionnaire?
I don't need a standard template or questionnaire. When that meeting comes, I want to be able to be creative and ask questions that I want. But if you guys would like to add a general questionnaire, I'm asking.
No, I think like give them 3 minutes and then another set amount of time for question and answer session. Go ahead.
So I was going to suggest if we can get direction to do a call for interested persons to submit a statement of purpose, and then have, I'd like to be able to have a list for you and have that list published as part of the agenda. So it would be a fast turnaround to be able to give you something for the first meeting in January, right? So you will have that information. You'll have their statement of intent, why they want to run, and then we will present that list to you, and they'll have a little bit of time to plead their case with you. I suggest, though, the questions could be tricky because you want to be able to ask the same questions so that you have a balance in which to judge them, right? You don't want to ask somebody an easy question and then somebody a difficult question, and you have that equity issue. So if you like, we could do that. We could do, put a message, have people submit a letter of interest and a statement of intent, publish that list, and then have them come in and give you their reasons why they want to run or they want to be considered. I would caution, about the exercising some level of discretion up here because of, the questions could be tricky.
Councilmember Dynas, you're in the queue.
Yeah, thank you, City Manager. I would echo that I think we would be better served with a set of questions to ask. We can ask questions about their response that would be appropriate, but to start asking questions that are unique to that individual and then not subject the other applicants to that I think would be a little discriminatory. And we want to have this a fair and balanced interview process, I guess is what we'll call it almost, job interview type of thing. So that's, I think we should have a, I like the idea of giving our, each of us giving our, top 3 questions to be asked, and then any other pertinent ones that the city staff thinks will be done, and share that with the council then. And then at the January meeting, we can see what those responses are, and then have them actually come and speak to us and verbally, explain why they're interested in it, why they answered the questions a certain way, and that'll give us the opportunity to then ask questions about their responses, not just random questions to individuals. I think it'd be much more fair.
I think that would be a standard baseline to treat everyone equally and to give everyone a level playing field and to have an equal understanding of what the expectations are. Okay, can we go ahead right now as a council and maybe throw out a few questions to put on there to speed this up? Maybe, why do you want to be on the city council? What is your future vision for the city? Those are a few standard questions I would like to know. Any other suggestions? Oh, ma'am, yeah, we'll go ahead and get to that real quick. Right now, I would like to hear from my colleagues, and we will give you an opportunity to weigh in shortly. Okay.
I'd prefer to, to think about that. I mean, this is, I don't want to throw things out off the top of my head without giving it some thought as to what would be the best questions to ask. I would prefer just to provide it to the city manager in writing so that we would have the opportunity to think through it. You only get 3 chances here, so I want to make sure I got the 3 right questions I want to ask.
Okay. What if our 3 questions, all 3 questions don't align? We're not discussing it, or we're not in unison. We're going to be submitting 3 different questions from 4 different people. I mean, I just think it would be orderly if we can come to a consensus now, or maybe even just have the applicant submit a letter of intent and leave it open, and then we ask the questions based off their responses.
I prefer to do mine in writing and think about it for a little bit and provide that to the city manager. That's my perspective.
Okay, fair enough. I don't want to rush anyone into this important decision. Councilmember Carwin and Temple, any direction on how you would like to?
What if we have a deadline for submitting our questions, and then they can be reviewed by staff? So today's Tuesday, get all of our questions in by the end of the week.
Okay, Councilmember Temple, how do you feel?
No, I like the sense of open-ended questions. I think a lengthy questionnaire would almost defeat the purpose. None of us had a lengthy questionnaire for our elections. I think something general with our ability to ask.
You forgot the Menifee 24/7 forum.
Oh my, yes, I did. I did. Yeah. But no, I think open-ended questions vetted through city staff would be great, and that way, we have them asked correctly, not how we would want them asked, but how the city staff would determine them best to be asked, and then have an interview process.
Okay. Sounds like we have a little bit of direction here, Mr. City Attorney. So help us frame how we would proceed forward with this, and then we can make a motion in a second to approve it.
What I think I heard is a motion. Part 1 of the motion is to instruct the city clerk to get a notice out so that people that are interested in the position of District 2 City Council member can submit that statement. Part 2 is that we would ask those members each to submit a statement of interest. That's sort of an open-ended opportunity. Part 3 is that we would ask each of the city council members by the end of the week this week to submit their top 2 or 3 top questions. And part 4 is that we would then ask the city staff to do their best to digest those somewhere between 8 and 12 total questions, depending on how many each council member submits, down to as small a list as possible. So to consolidate those questions and make them appropriate given staff's extensive experience with interview processes. We have the resources to do that. So I think that's generally what I heard, or it's sort of an amalgamation of what I heard. Does that sound right?
That sounds like a fair assessment and a balanced way to handle this, and I would be in favor of that. And
If that's a good enough motion, I'm making it. Okay.
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. And that passes 4-0. Thank you very much. We're going to now move on to agenda item 12, City Attorney reports. Mr. City Attorney, do you have anything to report?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Mr. City Manager, item 13, do you have anything to report?
Yes, Mayor and council members. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you for being mayor and Councilman Dan Temple and Mayor Pro Tem Carwin. Looking forward to working with your council and the future appointee. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce our newest member of our executive team. Her name is Angela Rivera, and I see her back there. I don't know, you want to come up and say a few words? Yes, you can.
Welcome,
She's
Ms. Rivera.
She's been appointed as our very first Human Resource Director.
A prepared 15-minute speech, please.
Don't I have the 3-minute time limit, right? So good evening, Mayor, council members, city management, and members of the public. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to serve as the City of Menifee's first Human Resources Director. I'm really super excited about that. I'm excited to join this growing city, especially at such a pivotal time. And I'm looking forward to working with our city leadership and our staff to continue to support City of Menifee's priorities and visions and just moving that forward. And as one of the fastest growing cities in the region, Menifee has incredible momentum right now, so I'm super excited about that as well. And given the opportunity to build a human resources foundation where we are collaborative and continue to keep the people first. So excited to be here, and thank you again for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, Angela. She brings a tremendous amount of experience from where she was before, and we're gonna now that we've grown to about 330 city employees, we need to be able to make sure that we watch that. Again, she brings a tremendous amount of experience. She did go through a very competitive process, and we are so lucky that she chose us to be, part of our team. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. We're moving on to item 14 now, future agenda requests from council members. Do we have any council members who'd like to make any future agenda requests? Okay, hearing none. We're on to item 15, adjournment. I will adjourn this meeting at 7:33. Good night, Menifee.